Thank you.
They've handed out the pictures.
Could I first of all invite Phil to introduce the paper, and then we'll open it up to questions and then debate. Phil.
So I've got no doubt that the submissions we've heard today have been helpful in terms of certainly, and we already have, as councillors are aware, a different recommendation, particularly around community engagement, and that feedback comes back to the committee, and that then the committee would make recommendations to council. So, and by the, just so submitters are aware, by community engagement we mean some formal and informal processes, like for example we would have drop-in sessions at the gardens, the museum may be another place, and in different places around the city, so people can look at the planning, which and make some comments and give some feedback on that. So in effect we will be having some community conversations around this very important part of our city, the Botanic Gardens. So just for clarification though for councillors too, that in itself the spatial plan, it's like a series of maps you will have seen in the appendix, maps with pictures, and the aim of course is to improve the gardens, its operations and its management. And you'll be aware that a key driver for all this is we have a group, a new group, the Christchurch Botanic Gardens Charitable Trust, and one of the objectives of the plan is that in fact the fundraising work that they want to do will be supported. So, and I'm sorry that the Civic Trust weren't part of the group of stakeholders, because a large number were involved, and they looked at really the needs and requirements so that the Botanic Gardens Master Plan can be delivered. So, and I think that if residents are able to look at those maps and the spatial plan and give their views, that will really assist us to get the best outcome. And I'll leave the other details that you may want to ask about to staff to comment on.
Yeah, I'd kind of like to start because I know the people that work in the Botanic Gardens, and a more passionate group of people you could not find. You know, it's just you know that it's kind of like it's they don't get out of bed in the morning and think, oh my goodness, I've got to go to work. It's just like it's a passion. So so we want to kind of support them. But I think that if I just had relied on what I'd read externally about what we were going to be considering today, instead of reading the actual paper that we're considering today, I would have had quite a different impression about what we're doing. And that's why I'm very supportive of this recommendation that we undertake community engagement and seek feedback from the public about what is really precious to the city as a whole. And the reason is that, and there is a question at the end of all of this before somebody jumps down my throat, that the reason is that what I didn't understand was the connection between the spatial plan, the master plan and the management plan and the action plan of that. So, and I mean, as we've had pointed out to us, it's the master plan that covers Hagley Park and the Botanic Gardens that this relates to, and that the spatial plan was developed as a tool to give effect to projects and objectives of the master plan and management plan, not going into the specifics, but in order to visually portray how it was all going to come together. But as a result, it's woken people's either memories of being involved back in 2007, or not actually being aware, or actually having the entire brain upset by the earthquake sequence in the meantime and everything else that's happened, and actually just worrying that something's happening to the Botanic Gardens. And we don't want to see a repeat of Victoria Square happening in our precious gardens. So there is a question, I'm sure.
I'm happy to comment on that if you like.
No, but what I wanted to know is, can the community engagement include a summary of of the original, what the plan was, the master plan, and also the action plan, because some of these are lifted straight from the action plan, and then also the development of, as Phil said, the Botanic Gardens Charitable Trust. We signed an MOU with them back in 2015 to enable philanthropic fundraising, because we haven't put money on the budget for certain things that are in the master plan. And so I think out of frustration, the people that work at the Botanic Gardens encouraged a group of people to come together as a philanthropic funding group, and they want to get on with fundraising for specific projects. So the spatial plan is an enabler for that. So, but in that context, I think some of the things will get some feedback from the public that we've got to be open to. So there you go.
Look, I guess the first thing I'd like to do is acknowledge that our communication around this project, if you like, has been somewhat clumsy. And I guess certainly from what we've heard from the deputations and from comments, is that it is a little bit complex for people to really grasp that there is a management plan for Hagley Park, there's a management plan for the Botanic Gardens, and there's an overarching master plan, but not a master plan as we sort of recognise them now, where we see images and block building so people can understand. And the spatial plan initiative was to fill that gap, and I acknowledge that it's been somewhat clumsy. And certainly I think it is the right thing to do to pause. I guess I just urge pause with a little bit of caution, because I think it's inappropriate for council staff to promote initiatives into the next long-term plan without a full understanding of the public and the elected members of what that really means. Now, what I mean by that is the master plan currently is a list of initiatives, and the Botanic Gardens is a very special place. It's a very crowded place, and if we just launch into individual projects, as we have one sitting in the long-term plan at the moment, we could create a bottleneck or some clumsy delivery of individual projects. It needs to be tied together. So that was the purpose. I won't go on about that anymore. In terms of stakeholder engagement, yes, I'd also like to acknowledge that the Civic Trust would obviously have liked to have been more directly involved, and more than willing to talk again more directly with them in the engagement process, and anyone else who puts their hand up. I think 3 months is a good cycle. We will still be able to move forward in the current planning for the long-term plan for the council to consider any future investments. And that's all I've got to say, really.
Great. Glenn, Yanni.
May I ask a question of Ian, just to cover off just the significance aspect, Ian? My question is over, does the passage of time, or when does the passage of time perhaps start to alter the significance measure? So it's been 10 years. This seems to be a common kind of feature in the deputations, this 10-year time frame, and so we're judging this to still be of low significance, but we're going to hopefully undertake the community engagement. If you're going to...
Well, I think that's the key, isn't it? That you are going to undertake a process of engagement where people can be brought up to date with earlier consultation. Right. Yes, there does seem to be a fair length of time since the last consultation. Presumably we're consulting or engaging on the same issue. So I don't think that's an issue given what we're going to do.
We're all covered off there. Yeah. Thank you.
Yanni?
Well, I mean, obviously the amendment has changed what we were going to do, but the recommendation from the committee was not to have consultation and engagement and just to approve the plan. So I think it would be good just to understand from our legal point of view around whether or not, if the committee recommendation was endorsed, not the amendment, how that would be treated in terms of our significance policy. Given what we've heard today, would they still treat it in the same way?
Sorry,
Look, I think-
I mean, it doesn't,
I can't really see the point in going into that, given that we do have this amendment here.
Well, so the advice that we've had, the advice that we have in the report, is that the level of significance is low because people were consulted in 2007, 10 years ago.
no, that's not quite what it says. It says the level of significance was determined by the fact that the projects depicted in the spatial plan were extensively consulted on in 2007.
Right.
So if those projects had been funded any time between 2007 and now, they would have been done and dusted. But they weren't funded because we had an earthquake in between. And so what the spatial plan, I think Andrew's just even explained it better than the report did, is that the spatial plan is to pick up what's missing. So we've got a master plan, but it's not a master plan like the Woolston suburban master plan, which is a spatial plan. This is a spatial plan. It shows you, it depicts what it will be like.
So okay, that's fine. So just in terms of two other questions, one is in terms of the 10-year program, we were going to review the Hagley Park Botanic Garden Master Plan in 2012 and 13, and I just wanted to check when we're next scheduled to review those management plans.
So the Reserves Act encourages reserve management plans to be reviewed, but it's not required, approximately every 10 years. And the master plan logically follows a management plan. The management plan sets out the objectives of how to manage the reserve and what you're trying to achieve. The master plan follows.
Right.
So 10 years have gone by, but we've had this hiatus whereby it was virtually impossible to deliver the previous plan generated by the earthquakes. So it's an open-ended answer. You can review a management plan any time you like. I will remind councillors that, I'm not sure if anyone was around at the time, that the last process took 3 years. So if you wish to go down that route, you logically you will not fund anything in the next long-term plan until you've been through that process.
So I think it would be really useful as part of the community engagement to get an update on the 10-year program and the actions, because there's a number of actions in there that may have been done, may not have been done.
I can give you that now, and we will publish it. We've built a visitor centre and we've done a conservation plan. That's it.
Yeah, so the things around, looking at the leases and tidying up the property arrangements, things like looking at the finances, for example, or surveying the condition of the trees, have those things just not happened at all?
We've been recently doing an operational review alongside the spatial plan to ready ourselves to present to council the state of the nation, so to speak, in respect to the Botanic Gardens. So yes, we've been working quite hard on the operational and the asset-based information.
So, I mean, again, I just think that would be really useful if we're going to engage with people, given that was kind of the actions that we said we were going to do, to have a sort of written update against each one.
I think that
around what's happening, what hasn't happened, and what's underway.
We heard from Andrew that was what you were going to do, is set that out.
That's what we're going to bring to council.
But also, but in terms of the public,
it's not related to the future developments. Those initiatives are related to everyday operations.
But, except we've just heard from the deputation that one of their concerns is that rather than going and looking at new projects, if we're not actually maintaining what we've got, they're really concerned. And so I think that will be a conversation as we engage that the community will want to have and understand. So,
yes, there is a point there, but you also can't divorce the fact that to improve the efficiency of current operations, you have to invest in the asset. You cannot divorce the two.
Right, exactly. So we can get the information, that would be good. And the final question I just had was, again, from our legal point of view, accepting what we've heard today around the fact that we're going to go out and engage, and therefore the significance isn't as relevant. Should we be putting approved the draft plan, or simply receiving it? And it just, as we have got it written in terms of the amendment, it's acting like we're approving the plan before we've even had that consultation.
they're approving it for community engagement and feedback.
I'm just asking staff in terms of if people were going to challenge it, should we not be putting the word draft in there to make it clear that we're open-minded as we go through that engagement to listen to that feedback.
I'm fearful that you still don't understand what a spatial plan is versus the master plan and the management plan.
No, I understand full well.
We're still using a lot of time on this unnecessary.
Yeah.
So can I get an answer from staff?
I think the resolution is reasonably clear enough. It approves the plan for community engagement. You would expect that if, as a result of that, there are changes to be made, they will be made.
Well, they can't be made because we've got a arrangement. If there's anything new comes.
All right, so would someone like to move that? Moved by Phil, seconded by Yanni. Any discussion? Yanni?
Yep. Well, thank you for the chair of the committee for moving a different amendment to what we had in front of us. As you'll be aware, this was discussed quite extensively at the committee, and the committee was not of the view that we should have community engagement. But I'm really delighted to see that we have actually got an amendment now to that report that actually will engage, for the reasons that I don't think you can rely on something that happened 10 years ago as being a reason not to engage. And also, given the significance of the Botanic Gardens to the people of the city, I think it's absolutely fair that the people of the city have a right to be involved in publicly engaged on what's being proposed. This is a very special place for our citizens and for visitors, and I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that the city is actually understanding what we're doing, what we're proposing, and therefore I think it's really great that we are now going to go out for a community engagement and feedback, and I want to make it really clear that I think we should be incredibly open-minded as to what we hear back from people around this, and also that we should actually make sure that in terms of the communication, given what we've heard that the communication hasn't been as good as it could, that we make sure really clearly articulate what the other things that are happening in this space, because I think that's been one of the problems, is that you've got an action plan, a management plan, a master plan, a spatial plan and a long-term plan. You've got ultimately 5 different documents all contributing to the same piece of land in the city. That creates a lot of confusion for people about what decisions are made and how. And one of the really interesting things, and I think still a question that we should consider, hopefully we can do it soon, is the whole governance of the Botanic Gardens and Hagley Park. That was one of the things that was identified in the action plan. It's one of the things that was identified through submissions we heard previous term of council, and I think it would be really good to just give some greater thought to that. The final point I'll make is that it was really interesting at the Finance Committee to get a report, a verbal update on some of the maintenance issues across the city, and one of the comments that was made was the difficulty in attracting people into the maintenance roles and fields, and certainly there was some discussion at the committee that looking at internships, looking at apprenticeships, looking at how we can engage our community in some of these labour shortage areas is a really important thing to do, and it was quite heartening to hear that the similar thing has been raised around these. So I think we do need to get on top of the maintenance issues in the city and look at creative ways of addressing some of the shortcomings that people are identifying, and I welcome that work happening.
Phil?
I have to say that at the committee, there was no indication that the committee did not want community engagement at all. I think there was an assumption that as part of the process, community engagement would happen, and in fact today it's been clarified. In fact, it's very clear in the report that there will be full consultation around any of the projects that actually come from the spatial plan,
yeah.
And so that in fact it happens, we want to make sure that the business case which the staff will prepare, that goes into the long-term plan, so that then the projects are clarified and the staff have written down each and made it really clear those projects will be fully consulted on. And so there has been a lot of, we know there's people are really passionate about the community gardens, and people are going to get every opportunity to be fully involved with this engagement.
Glenn, Sarah, Jimmy, I'm going to have to break this, and because we've got some people waiting to go on to the next item. So if people could just bear that in mind, if we could be quick.
Sure.
Glenn, Sarah.
I'll be really fast. Just on the consultation, 5.7 to 10 actually tells you it is an ongoing process, so it's already underway. The key stakeholders are listed there as well. I also want to commend Phil's initiative for taking the committee and the invitation extended to the whole committee for a tour around the Botanical Gardens with Andrew and staff. So that was a good way of also engaging the committee. So we got to see firsthand. Let's make this an enjoyable process, pitch it at the right level, but not make a monster out of something. I think, yes, let's take the people with us, but let's make it enjoyable and a good way to engage with a real jewel in our city.
Yep. Sarah?
Thank you. I will make this brief. I was on the stakeholder reference group as chair of the Hagley-Ferriman Community Board. It was a really good process with highly engaged stakeholders, which was great. Though my impression throughout the whole thing was that it would be then ready to go out for consultation. So I'm really pleased that it will be going out for engagement with the community, because when we say it's not going to, people fill a void with fears that big things are going to happen, and I think this process will really reassure people that in fact the work has been done in good faith. There's nothing to hide, and that people can once again sort of feel really engaged with their key public space.
Jimmy?
Before the social and the community, the development committee have a discussion and make the recommendation regarding the issue. Actually, I and some of the members, we did have the site visit. We was impressed with the staff regarding to draft this kind of spatial plan, and also particular purpose for the funding. We're all aware, because the master plan, management plan, you can afford, to how to link together. But the spatial plan, that's powerful too. However, regarding consultation, my understanding, staff actually do some of the consultation already. For instance, like the project partners, key stakeholders, and some of the maybe part of wider community. Right now, the key is we probably more open to the public can contribute. But actually, I would like to acknowledge the staff contribution in the last, the maybe a year or couple of years regarding to this job. So I'm fully support this one.
Great. All right, I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you both.